Lee, over here.
Oh, I should know that voice. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay.
You have been extraordinarily compelling on the question of the choices you have made and are prepared to make in government. I would like to shift your attention to the choice we're about to have to make in politics. And could you please tell us what are the three issues that in your mind distinguish you from Jennifer Brunner, and what are the different three issues that distinguish you from Rob Portman?
You know, one of the things that's always bothered me about Judy Rawson is that you would think your friends would lob softballs. Judy has never given me a softball question in her life, and I'm sick and tired of that, Judy. How about an easy question? Okay. First of all, let's start with the primary. I will tell you that Jennifer and I are both progressive. I think we're both well qualified to serve in the U.S. Senate. I think we'd both be far better than our Republican opponent, Rob Portman. But I prefer to let Jennifer speak for herself, and I'll just focus on me. I've spent my life in Ohio. I've walked the walk. I haven't just talked the talk. There's an old saying that, don't tell me what you believe, tell me what you've done and tell me what you'll do, and I'll tell you what you believe. And having worked in the legislative and executive branches, having worked at the Center for Families and Children, having been a person who's been on the ground saving and creating and retaining and attracting jobs, and someone who has been independent, who hasn't always followed the dictates of my own party, and has felt at times you just have to speak your voice even if there are adverse political consequences. I believe that I'm prepared to hit the ground running if I have the honor of being elected to the United States Senate. And at this time in the history of our country, I think people are more focused on results than ever before. Not just words, but results. And I believe if you look at what I've done and what I'm proposing, that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I do. It's all about results for hardworking men and women who work hard, want to play by the rules, work on a level playing field, and achieve the American dream. And at the Center for Families and Children, our slogan was hope, dignity, and purpose. I can't think of anything that provides more hope, dignity, and purpose for a human being than a job. Nothing. It gives you a sense that you are making a difference, not just in your family's life, but no matter what it is for other people. So I believe I'm prepared. Now let me talk, because I'm much more eager to answer the second part of the question. I do believe, as I said earlier, Judy, that this election in November will be a crystal clear choice between the past and the future. Now, I'm not one who just casts blame, because the truth of the matter is if you don't have a plan to get out of the ditch, it doesn't matter who got you in the ditch. But it does matter who got you in the ditch if you're going to elect somebody who was holding the shovel. And Rob Portman is a nice person. I know Rob. But let's make it very clear. Rob Portman was not a casual observer. He was not a passerby. He wasn't even just a member of Congress who pressed yes 95% of the time for George W. Bush's policies. That would have been bad enough. He was his trade advisor that actually supports to this day and actively supported the very incentives I talked about today, to being able to give tax incentives to companies to ship their jobs overseas. And he was the budget director. He was the person who put George Bush in the interesting position of inheriting a $128 billion surplus from Bill Clinton and handing to Barack Obama a close to $500 billion deficit. And one of the chief architects of that was my opponent. So I think that people will have a choice between somebody who spent his life in Washington, D.C. He is the ultimate Washington insider, and in fact, Rob doesn't hide it. He talks about it. He says, and I quote, "I know where the bodies are buried." And he probably does. But I would suggest to you that you have a choice between the Ohio person who spent their life in Ohio and spent their life in the privileged quarters of Washington, D.C., someone who is focused on providing incentives to create Ohio jobs and somebody who's created incentives to export jobs. I'm all for exports, but let's make them goods and services, not jobs. And I think a choice between the past and the future. I have to tell you that we are right now in the deepest economic ditch in most of our lifetimes. And I believe sincerely that most of the reason is because of the misguided priorities and policies, both trade and economic, of George Bush and Rob Portman. So he's a nice guy, but he's the wrong guy for the U.S. Senate. Okay, thanks.
Today at the City Club, we have been listening to a special forum featuring Lee Fisher, Lieutenant Governor of Ohio and U.S. candidate for U.S. Senate. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.